Hello, everyone. It is Friday, the 5th of January, 2024. And I got to get used to saying 2024. And I was offline yesterday just because there was a bit of a family thing going on, and I distracted with that. And just wanted to make sure that everything was okay. And so was not remotely thinking about putting any videos out, even though I have, of course, groundbreaking information, earth-shattering information that you are never going to get anywhere else, that in such a consolidated, fine little package. That's my channel. And there's a lot of news right now about Jeffrey Epstein, the list. And so far, the names that have been released, that's from like an old list. And so that's why, like, I share some names from like the old list from like literally even a couple of years ago, and people are assuming that that's like the new list. And I'm saying, I like, even when I posted, I'm saying this is not the new list. I don't even think it's out yet, because there was still a Jane Doe that wanted this to be held from being released for, I guess, like until the 30th of January, I want to say. But anyway, and just because like allegedly in her country, stricter rules than North America regarding that stuff, and fearing for her life. This could all be like a lie, and who cares about someone's safety unless they were an actual victim? Like, no offense at this point. Like, if you are an actual criminal and you've actually done things, not just on the island, by the way, because there's underground tunneling systems and meetups and gatherings and locations that happen literally all over the place. And even Robert Miller, a billionaire within Canada, like as part of the energy grid, exploiting our friggin' money with that. And by the way, I'm going to share with videos with you today that they're going to be upsetting, but they're necessary. And I would really like it if people would start reaching out to their electricity companies, like I do, their hydro companies, their oil companies, and their mayors and their district leaders and their cabinet representatives, all of these friggin' people, and just share this video, and or have these discussions yourself with people, because we need to get this information more out. And so I was talking with Mike from Stellium 7. I highly recommend people take a look at his work. Groundbreaking information, and he really digs deep into the reality of the world regarding trees and the older trees. And I'll get into this, but even on Joe Rogan's show, he's had guests on even recently that were talking about even in Alaska and other areas of the world like Antarctica, where there's trees that are frozen underground, like that are even upwards of 300 feet in length, and even larger than that, but actual trees like buried underneath the snow and the ice in various parts of Alaska, and where you could actually dig out and get from dead tree roots crude oil and gas and stuff like that. All of these things that people are saying are scarce. And the people that are saying this are people that are actually shredding trees and destroying our friggin' soil and our friggin' land and trying to push electricity, even though it's free. And the electrical grids have been established and and maintained. I wouldn't say well maintained, but maintained. Now they're friggin', it's a mess for generations. I would say decades, but I'm going to tell you it's actually generations. And so like these delivery fees that we're getting, and for like the supplies and stuff like that, why are we paying all of this money? And these fat fucking assholes, okay, men and women included in Canada, that are exploiting farmers, families, people that are trying to have families, people that are trying to freaking like graduate from freaking high school and start life. You know what I mean? Going to academic institutions or trades where they're actually going to be taught how to do proper things. And we're not getting that here in Canada, right? And then we had destruction companies like Taggart with people that weren't even fucking qualified to do a lot of the stuff that they were doing, and destroying our city, destroying Ottawa and Ontario and Canada. I'm just saying, like, even in my own experience, these people, these schmucks that they get in, that a lot of people don't even have the permits to even be on a lot of these places, like heritage sites, churches, national parks, like areas where they have no business being. We have assholes that are doing what their bosses are telling them to do, and places they have no business being, where there's even cases in the court system still that these morons are not even aware of or care. I'm just doing my job. You're destroying Canada, and you're actually also building the prison that you're allowing us to be in. So there's a lot more issues in Canada right now than just like immigration, without integration and all that other stuff. It's our destruction companies and our real estate companies that are specifically the major ones that are selling these plots to foreign nationals and or people that don't even live in Canada, and or people that already have multiple friggin' homes, and they're selling to them at cost, and they're getting their friend lenders, not banks, but their friend lenders, to give them the money for these houses that they're buying at $200,000 for the house and the land, and then they're giving people mortgages or rent. Sorry, they're making people pay rent for what would be a mortgage on a $700,000 home. So they're fucking criminals at all levels. I mean, and the more we address this, because again, our working class, our blue collar, like they're really, and I hate slamming them because like I always slam the elitists and the rich people, but I'm also slamming people that are ruining the lives intentionally for the middle class, and they're doing it because they think that they deserve it. You know what I mean? Or who cares about the middle class? Like, you're destroying the fucking country just because you didn't want to get the jobs that these people have. You know what I mean? Like, you weren't fucking in the infantry as an infantry officer for 15 years. You didn't fucking pass the selections where there was even 77% failure rate for men in the third phase of training, the hardest course in the fucking Canadian Armed Forces, the hardest course in Canada. And you didn't do any of that. You didn't deploy and serve and like spend like maybe like a fucking couple of weeks at a time every year in your own home because you were literally doing either training for deployment or deployed. And these men picking up fucking bottles off of a heritage site with a crane and a dozer because they're too fat and lazy now to actually do proper work on the ground, like the stonework and stuff like that we did in advance when we had advanced civilizations. This lazy work, this disgusting work that these people are doing after shredding trees and not doing anything with the trees needs to stop. And they're over exhausting our waste management areas as well, right? And so they're dumping chemicals, they're dumping all this fucking waste that they're creating, waste that they're creating into landfills and dump sites and stuff like that. And in previous times, I've tried to share with these dumb fucks what's happened in the past with mud floods and with great fires and stuff like that, and with the electrical grids, how they're surging the grid and causing fires. Even two people that I was close friends with in Ottawa, and I don't have a lot of friends, like 5 in Ottawa because I'm not born or raised here, and two people that I was friends with had their houses burned, new build, by these destruction companies working with these fake ass real estate companies and stuff like that. Like this, like Canada is being run by the fucking by slumlords. Like, unfortunately, I hate to break it to you. And I tried to give this information to Glenn Gower, the mayor of Stittsville, multiple times. And instead, that slimy little fuck instead tried to threaten me on email, even though my emails were completely polite. And I was sharing information saying, like, this is this is a safety issue, obviously. And do these fucking losers want to hear this? No, they don't, because he gets cuts and profits and shares and stocks from these fucking companies, right? It's a business, and I'm sure that he also fucking owns homes that he's renting to people at disgusting prices, while we're all basically like on fucking food stamps at this point and paying carbon tax for fucking fake ass carbon fees and stuff like that. Anyways, I'm going on all these tangents. Friday. Which one will I start with? I shared this with Stellium just to make sure, just to see if he saw this already. He has, and he's just like me. Like, we agree with some things in here, but not everything. And so this is from Space Busters from 3 years ago, and I've been sharing this stuff for years too. And it's called Atlantis Rising 4B, the literal world tree. Oh, and I also wanted to say that a lot of like transport truck drivers now as well. And again, my stepfather has like 35 plus years as a truck driver. He's done long haul and short haul through North America as well, and over 3 million miles without a friggin' accident. And he's saying too that there's more people that are coming into Canada from Canada that have fake transport truck licenses, and they're getting this especially in the Toronto, Brampton, like Ontario region. There are people coming in from other countries, and or people that are like just off the friggin' streets that have like zero qualifications to be on like heavy trucks. And there's special certifications and qualifications you need to get, by the way, to have a transport truck license and to maintain it. And they don't have it. The people have fake fucking licenses, and people are wondering why there's also more accidents and more issues with people like pertaining to transport trucks, where we're seeing them go in places they have no business being, not able to back out of places, not able to park in places. They're going off the friggin', they're not following the rules of the road, like even in like merging in traffic and stuff like that. I've never seen it this bad in my life. And I've been driving the roads, and I was a mechanized battalion infantry officer for 15 years. Like I said, convoy operations all over the friggin' world. And I've lived all over the world as well and traveled. And I've never seen it this bad in countries where we have rules of the road and there's traffic violations and all this stuff. And these people need to have more truck stops where people are actually verifying their permits and their licenses, and they're really good at these fakes now, obviously, just like fake driver's licenses for people that go into bars and stuff like that. Like, they're obviously really good with these fakes, and so cops really need to get the fuck on this too, right? And more on transport truck companies that are doing this, fuck you, right? And so anyone that's died because of accidents or had damage to themselves or their vehicles or their homes or anything, or like because of you, then again, weak men create weak societies. And they're all lying to us, and they think we're fucking dumb.
Yggdrasil, or as my Danish son, who can actually pronounce it, calls it,
Yggdrasil. In Norwegian, Yggdrasil
is an immense mythical tree that plays a central role in Norse cosmology, where it connects the 9 worlds. Like Dante's 9 circles of hell, or the 9 lives of a cat falling out of a window, we think of this as a vertical metaphor. But what if it's actually horizontal? Our 7 continents fit in imperfectly with Tesla's energetic vortex laws of 3, 6, and 9. I'm pretty sure he would have mentioned 7 if it was important. Cami Nodell points out in her brilliant work that based on current magnetic field understanding of the Earth, unfortunately, given to us by the same bullshit Jesuit con artists who gave us the Big Bang monkey ball Earth, that we are missing at least 1 continent. But what if we are missing 2 continents,
Or
making
more.
9
Who knows?
total? The first, Lemuria, in the Pacific Ocean, once between are right where the scarlet red whore of Babylon are, which is where ancient mystery Babylon and modern day Israel are. But that's none of the United States, just we'd like to share some comments from our brilliant Spacebuster subs who give us more questions than we give them answers, and who are the only reason we continue to do this shared learning venture. Bob points out that there is a mycelium mushroom mat that covers the entire United States just under the ground. One giant mushroom, hundreds of miles large, just inches under the ground, that most people have no idea exists. Guilty as charged. Nothing to see here, Spacebusters. Move along. Andrew L. says, what if the flood surrounds...
And some people don't even believe there was a flood. So this is what I wanted to get to.
With this little gem of a video on bushcraft extraction of crude oil out of dead tree roots using fire or heat, as we discussed in alternative volcanism theory in part 4.
Look at that. Look at that!
I talked to a guy when I was up in Alaska. He said, he told me he works in the oil field drilling for oil near Barrow. He said they drill down 1,000 feet through permanently frozen ground, permafrost, and hit trees.
Oh, you talked about it too.
He said one day they were drilling and hit a tree. They always take whatever they drill out and lay it on the ground beside them to go, develop a sample of what's down in the ground. He said they drilled straight through the top of a tree that was 300 feet tall, standing up. This is on the north slope of Alaska. Folks, I was just up there. There are no trees. We saw one tree growing in a Chinese restaurant inside, about this big. That's it. There are no trees in Barrow, Alaska. There are certainly no trees 300 feet tall. There are very few trees in the world 300 feet tall. Some of the redwoods are that size, but how do you get 300-foot tree standing up under 1,000 feet of permanently frozen ground? What happened? when they drill down through the ice, sometimes they find strange things. Like in Antarctica, they drill down, which is at the bottom of the world here. Well, we call it the bottom. Of course, you can't tell when you're standing there, but at the south end of the world, they drill down through the ice and hit coal. There's enormous evidence of huge forests in Antarctica where there's not one tree growing today. There's not a blade of grass growing down there. Admiral Byrd said he found frozen palm leaves under the ice near the South Pole, and thousands of well-preserved leaves found in Antarctica. What happened? 250 miles from the South Pole, they find frozen leaves in the side of a cliff. There are no trees there, none, zero. This article talks about the discovery of these leaves. They have their original cellular content. These leaves are not fossilized. They're still leaves. Up in northern Canada, there's a it's called Ellis Island. There on Ellesmere Island, there are no trees at all, none. Yet they find petrified redwood stuff.
And by the way, he's incorrect with saying that there should be no petrified trees or redwoods in Canada. That's incorrect, because even in British Columbia and stuff like that, all through that area, there's like redwood trees and stuff like that. And I believe in northern Canada as well, but underground now.
Up there. There are certainly no redwood trees growing up there in northern Canada.
Not anymore.
There are only a few select locations where they grow along the California coast and up into Oregon a little bit.
And
I debated Jeannie Scott. She's the president of the National Center for Science Education in Berkeley, California. The National Center is a little bit store.
Why do people not understand that Canada exists and we have a friggin' military, and our military has gone to places like been involved in world wars even before the US, and we've been put in places throughout fucking history that were the most volatile areas to get the shit done on the ground. A lot of false flag events, so a lot of people being used and exploited, myself included. It is what it is, and I've lost people in war, buried people in war, literally, and then at home over various other issues pertaining to war and those experiences. And yeah, it's a fucking mess.
Front building with 5 people in there. But I debated Jeannie Scott in a debate, and she said, Dr. Hovind, there are 80 separate layers of coal in the Midwest. She's right. She said, if you look at the amount of coal in the world today, the entire biomass, all the plants of the world today, could not possibly be converted to that much fossil fuel. She's right again. There is so much coal in the world that if you took every tree and blade of grass and bush and squished it, you couldn't make all the coal. There are enormous volumes of coal in the earth. I said, Jeannie, you are right. She said, well, don't you see, Hovind, there had to be an enormous amount of time to lay down all the coal seams. Oh, no. Right there, she's wrong. You see, she's looking at today's world and assuming that's how it's always been. Mm-hmm. The coal we find in the ground today is a result of that flood which buried the world before.
Again, I don't know about that. People just commit to shit. Where's this proof?
For the flood, when they had lots more trees. There's a coal mine in Montana that is 10,000 square miles of coal up to 200 feet thick. Someone told me a few months ago they've now found a seam 300 feet thick.
These are tree stumps, just to be clear. I've said this for friggin' years. So if crude oil and gas and stuff like that could be from like dead and or petrified tree stumps, then all within these areas, and they shouldn't be like mined and exploited and stuff like that, just to be clear, unless absolutely necessary. But we need to manage this, and we need to keep our fucking trees and allow areas for them to be preserved. Our wildlife preservation officer, Mark Flowers, who should be fucking fired, has been also part of government, and I emailed him as well. He needs to stop. Okay, people like that need to fucking stop. And I bet you he hasn't even been outside on a trail in his entire life to do a fucking walk. I bet you he plays video games.
That's a lot of coal.
Because it's all the fucking video game people or the office people that are making the solutions now and have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. None of them know any of this stuff. So when I hear them talk and their plans and their committees and their panels and all this fucking stuff, I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
A lot of coal. And sometimes in coal, human artifacts are found. This bell was found inside a lump of coal. This iron pot was found inside a lump of coal. The sole of a shoe found inside a lump of coal. We cover more on that on video 6. But the Bible says there were herbs, that's plants, over all the earth. It's not that way today. 70% of the earth is underwater, for heaven's sake. Okay, that's not covered with plants. The earth was covered with plants when God made it. Did you know they find leaves in Antarctica? 250 miles from the South Pole, they're finding leaves. There are no trees in the South Pole. 70% of the earth today is underwater. Did you know only 3% of this earth is habitable for mankind? A lot of it's under desert, ice caps, tundra,
Yeah.
mountain ranges that nobody can live on. 3% is habitable. Probably the pre-flood world was, I would just give a number and say probably 80% land and only 20% water.
See, like, I don't know where he's getting these numbers from. And so I just wanted to share that crude oil part. There's probably more interesting stuff in here, but like this guy's being too inaccurate. And or just like what he's saying is groundless, right? And so for the remainder, like talking about the floods and stuff like that, and how 3% of the world is habitable. It could be more if we actually unfuck the way we're doing our cloud seeding and our geoengineering and the wasting our resources and how we're doing the fucking grid. And this is the short one. So this is Spacebusters again, the National Ether or Aether Grid.
A lot of electricity, but it might surprise you where some of here in the UK we use a lot of electricity, but it might surprise you where some of it comes from. There is quite a lot of pushback from people who don't want huge windmills built close to their houses, and quite rightly so. They are noisy, ugly, they kill birds by the thousands, and not very effective on days with no wind. And when it's too windy, they have to turn them.
And there's also windmills in the ocean, and they're causing whale migrations to be impacted, and fish migration, and a lot of other friggin' plant and marine life. And by the way, that's the most of the friggin' life on Earth is in the goddamn water. And these don't last very long. They're very expensive to make. And then when they're friggin' completely like done with, all right, and they still need fucking oil and gas, by the way, to operate, like to spin them and stuff like that. Like if you think that they're just out there and they're not connected to anything, just like the electrical grids and stuff like that. Anyway, then anyway, it's fine. But they're not recyclable or biodegradable or anything like that. So like all of these friggin', and then some of them are literally like hundreds of feet long and huge, and killing eagles, killing owls, killing hawks, killing friggin' like glorious birds. And these shit pumps that put them in, oh my God, just a waste of fucking space. No offense. And again, I'm just annoyed because people are causing so much more harm than good. And these like cookie cutter builds that they're doing, I'm just going to stop talking because you're going to see how fucking dumb it is to people like me and why. You see this shit and we're like, you guys are fucking dumb. And anyone supporting and enabling this is dumb too.
Them off so they don't rip themselves apart. Another lesser known fact is that the so-called carbon footprint to make these huge machines is massive. And it's even bigger when they are decommissioned. They last on average about 20 years. They can't burn them because it's too toxic, so they have now resorted to burying them in landfills because it costs too much to break them down. That's not very green, is it?
And that's polluting the soil, by the way.
According to our favorite source of information, the UK's first grid tower was erected in 1928. Its purpose was to transport electricity to the outer reaches of the mainland, supplying its ever-growing population with the power it needed for expansion into the Industrial Revolution. Before the expansion of the national grid, businesses used local coal or gas-fired generators and all manner of contraptions to power their factories. So the emergence of electricity delivered to your doorstep, so to speak, was hugely popular. We have been led to believe that these high-tension power lines transport electricity from one place to another. This is true, but the thousands of miles of cable have another lesser-known purpose, and that purpose could change the way you think about power generation. And it also begs the question, why the hell are they keeping this information from us? The word air is derived from the Latin word air, or ether. The ether is the air that we breathe, but apart from keeping us all alive, it has another little-known property that you probably didn't realize. The ether is electric.
It's electromagnetic, but yeah, it's electric. And I'm just going on Rumble, and so I got a shout out from Australia, and so shout out from Canada back, saying "Commie Australia." See, all first world countries are dealing with the same commie stuff. I like the evil globalist bastards. They're wrecking our farms in the name of the bullshit climate agenda. So yeah, Australia confirmed as well. Like we're seeing it in Europe with Germany and countless other places where farmers are now aligned with like the truckers and they're doing protests all over the place. And it's specifically because has been done before in the past, and especially these places, they know more so than people in Canada, because we've forgotten, but just how much pain and suffering and harm that can be on populations when you impact the agriculture and the farming and stuff like that. And so all these people, like even Tedros or whatever his friggin' name is, by the way, he's guilty and wanted for crimes against humanity in multiple countries in Africa, and no one wants to speak about that. And Bill Gates also, like he's been, like, crimes against humanity have been filed like against him. So I don't understand how, like, and again, he works with WEF and the World Health Organization and the UN, and people like Leslyn Lewis in Canada. She's a conservative member. She's speaking out against UN and our commitment to them, Canadians' commitment and involvement. And then she's getting attacked and harassed and called a right-wing supremacist and a sexist and all this. The irony is she's black and she's a woman and she's conservative, and that, like, but I mean, she's more liberal or libertarian, I would argue too, than conservative. But she's getting called a right-wing white supremacist, and what, like, and Vivek is too. And anyway, it's make it make sense. But we need to have agriculture, and they're trying to say that we need a more sustainable, healthier way to manage our planet, like, because of this ongoing climate crisis and stuff like that. How you do that is you allow nature to run its course and do its thing, right? And stop messing with it. And you need to have a certain amount of people within a country that is involved in agriculture, whether it be with meat and or with, like, vegetables and fruits and stuff like that, in order to supply the food for that friggin' country and other countries as well, you know, for foods and supplies and stuff like that other countries don't have, that your country may have, right? So, like, there's still, like, a sharing import export thing that needs to be done. But what we're doing is absolutely mind-bogglingly ridiculous, and it's not friendly to the environment. So people are saying, like, oh, the cow farts are causing ozone layer. Like, what are you talking about? And first of all, cows are a sustainable like meat product, and even the cow dung and the way they fertilize crops. Like, there's so many things that you can use a cow for in a friggin' field, where it gives sustainable nourishment and supplies and resources to an entire friggin' family for months. I just don't understand. And we're selling the cows too and stuff like that and people need to have meat in order to live. And I would argue that, like, having store-bought products, right, that causes a hell of a lot more harm to the environment. But this is what they're talking about. They want to have, like, plastic foods, fake foods, Beyond Meat, friggin' bug burgers and stuff like that as the option for people when food is our health. And they're just trying to make us sicker. Anyone that promotes this stuff is just trying to make us sicker.
Existence.
And you're gonna get more pissed off as this video goes on. Like, it just fires me up, because I'm gonna show even with commercial air flights, how they screw us over on airline tickets and stuff like that, and lie to us about like the fuel costs and the fuel quantities within the aircrafts.
This depends on electricity, but that topic is for another video. The ether carries a charge. From the ground upwards, it increases by 100 volts for every meter in height. That is cumulative if grounded. This energy can be harvested from the air, ether, by hanging very long wires high up on pylons stretching right across the country. Have you ever wondered why these thousands of miles of cables are supported on huge, mega expensive and very ugly pylons, when it would have been much easier and much, much cheaper?
Ugly. And look at the old designs too, like the old world designs. Like, these were actually friggin' towers, beautiful towers where people could, like, work in and live in, and, like, they were not this shit. I'm not saying, like, I mean, and these are very, very old.
To run these cables under the ground. Or how about under the existing roads? Nope. We apparently prefer seeing these massive monstrosities winding their way across the otherwise beautiful landscape. And I don't know about you guys, but I've never, in my 50 years of driving all over the country, ever seen a new line of pylons being erected. All services are now buried under the extensive network of roads. A quick search for your local area on Google Earth will show you power lines and pylons. If you try following some of the lines, you will find that some of them start and finish at the same substation. So they're transporting electricity back to where it came from. I think not. No, this network of high tension lines is generating or harvesting electricity from the ether. So apart from the infrastructure itself, it's abundant, it's absolutely free, it's absolutely renewable, absolutely sustainable, and as green as you could possibly get. All you have to do is run miles and miles of cable up in the air, out into the countryside and back again. However, there is a catch. As your town or city expands its suburbs, they will inevitably encroach on the existing power lines. There are many, many stories and examples of construction companies having to build around and underneath these pylons.
Look at this. Look at why? Why are you building this shit here? And look how many rooms and buildings and people like live in it. Like,
doesn't it seem strange to you that rather than bury these cables under the new building project, they just leave them there?
Why are we building houses here is what I'm saying as well. Like, why are we not building outward when there's so many houses that are already built all over Canada and the US and ghost cities and towns where there's even still friggin' electricity running in them, and we're not re-inhabiting and reoccupying these friggin' homes and stuff like that.
Now you have your answer. They can't. As the great cities expanded, the network was not enough to sustain the increased population, and other methods such as hydro, nuclear, coal, gas, and now wind are used to make up the shortfall. They can't take the cables down because they still generate a large portion of the UK's and most other countries' energy needs. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I present to you the national grid, not only transporting power to the masses, but also generating it through the ether. And it's been doing it for a very, very long time. For free, but you're still paying for it.
For free, and we're still paying for it. And they keep on having the friggin' audacity to give us, in Canada, this is what they're doing. Like, we're getting like service fees, like usage fees, all the admin fees, delivery fees. Are you fucking kidding me? I'm swearing so much. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I just, are you fucking kidding me? People, come on. And these people don't need more. The people that are like doing the rules and the regulations and the policies and stuff like that, they're on a friggin' yacht, or they're not even living here. Okay? Or they're living here half the friggin' year and they're in friggin' Florida or friggin' the Caribbean or friggin' Tora friggin' Bora for the rest of it. And they're getting their little friggin'
in the next video on this subject.
Fuck up the middle class in Canada and the farming areas and the agricultural zones in fucking Canada and suburbia and people living like in the downtown city cores and stuff like that. Like, they're fucking all of our lives up. And it's like, I'm just doing my job. Blah, 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 blah. And you're wondering why we're having to also get people from outside of Canada try to fucking unfuck this because you're doing a terrible job. I know, I'm like all over the place. I'm so fucking sorry. I must be starting my period soon. I shouldn't say that. Anyway.
We will discuss how long this practice has been going on.
Very long.
And also some of the fabulous ways our ancestors harvested this energy for their own houses. Space Busters.
That was a good one. And I'm keeping them coming. You're going to like this one. You are going to like this one. And I mean by like, you're going to get a little annoyed. For anyone that likes traveling. 2018. 6 years ago.
Greetings, fellow air travelers. This video is for everyone who has ever bought an airline ticket. I'm going to make this video as short as possible.
Sorry, I just got another question. Not a question, but it was on Rumble again. Okay, so I showed the video showing the Earth's current map and the face of the moon, but it's only a small section, meaning the other parts of the reflection could be more land. Talk about the illuminated parts. I think I know what you're talking about. I think I know which video. I'm just going to stop this and show a screen just to see if we're on the same page with that. It's in Prague. I meant to say Prague. But so this clock right here is like the oldest clock. It's been updated and changed to like make it where you can't see like the original. Unfortunately, this is so annoying that they do this. But you'll see where there's like a section of this clock where it shows like what we're being shown on this section of the world, and then there's other layers, right? So even the moon, the reflection that we're seeing, there's larger land mass, and there's been discussions where I've talked about like the luminaries, like the 7 original planets or luminaries, where there are some that have phases, right? Like Jupiter and Venus, and what we call the moon, they have phases. And then we classify the other luminaries like Saturn, Venus, Saturn, the sun itself, and Mars as suns. And so I was saying that, like, maybe because of like how close our sun and moon are to like this section of the Earth, this is why we're calling it the sun and the moon. But maybe people like Elon Musk, for example, when he talks about going to Mars, which is, I believe, to be like another sun that's like further away, which is why we're not seeing it as brightly as the ones that are closer to us. Like, this could be where it's seen just as visible as we're seeing our sun and moon in another area of the world that could be possibly frozen over right now, just because, like, I don't know, it's like not as hot or heating as much with those luminaries. And then when our sun and moon, that's maybe stronger, like moves over to like those areas, like on this cosmos clock or universe clock, because this is a divinely creating a reality that is it's a perfect clock and system. And so when people talk about traveling to outer space or whatever like that, since they can't go beyond the dome, in my humble opinion, or firmament, there could possibly be truth to that. Like people like Elon Musk saying, again, like going to the Mars or wherever, or Venus. I think that this is just a play on words, and they're talking about going to like outside land masses that we just don't have access to anymore. I know this is like out of I think that might be what you're talking about too, and if not, then I'm sorry. But I'll get back to commercial air flights. I don't know if that's redundant. I hope that was a good explanation, because it's like not even 7 a.m. and sometimes the national grid. Oh yeah, this one. Okay, sorry. There we go.
Possible, but the large amount of information included will inevitably dictate the length, so please bear with me. Hopefully at the end of this video I will have convinced you that there is a deception going on right in front of your eyes. This affects every person that has ever travelled on a modern day airliner. If you're not convinced, then I hope that this information will have planted a little seed of thought that you can use later on when something else related comes to light. We have been told that the fuel for a flight consists of about 50% of the ticket price. We have accepted this information for many, many years. What if that information was wrong? What if the manufacturers knew this and chose to keep it quiet? We've all experienced walking up the airplane steps, stopping in the queue and looking around. We look at the wings, we look at the engines, and marvel at the size of these amazingly powerful pieces of modern technology. Sometimes we also see the fuel being pumped into the wings. We think nothing of it. But what happens if we put our common sense hat on and take another look? The Airbus A380 is a truly amazing feat of engineering. In a purely bums-on-seats configuration, this aircraft can take almost 900 passengers. A typical coach takes about 50 passengers, so the A380 can take approximately 18 coachloads of people. That's a lot of people. According to their own specifications, the A380 can take 323,525 litres of jet fuel in the wing tanks. That works out at roughly 260 metric tons, or 130 tons of fuel in each wing. I'll let that sink in for a minute, because that is very, very heavy. That is the same as 16 red London double-decker buses on each wing. Or to put it another way, a herd of 22 fully grown elephants on each wing. How does that sound to you? Pretty incredible, right? But you can look this information up in the specifications and check it for yourself. Most of us have seen a plane refueling. They connect 1 or 2 hoses underneath the wing, connect that to a pump on board a refueling truck, which then pumps the fuel from underground tanks. This takes about 45 minutes for a full load. We never see the amount being pumped because the tanks are not visible. Let's make them visible and see how that looks. It would take 16 of these 20,000 litre trucks to fill the A380. Where does all this fuel go? In the wings, you say? Okay, let's take a look at the wings, and you tell me where you think it all goes. This is the A380 wing. Pretty huge. Let's put a fuel truck next to it. And another. And another. And another. And 4 more. Just for this wing. Another 8 go into the other wing. Can you see what I'm saying? Now let's take a look at the wings on these aircraft. This is the new Dreamliner taking off in a spectacular fashion. Observe the thickness of the wings. How many fuel trucks would fit in those wings? Okay, let's take a look at the fill rate. To fully fill the A380 takes approximately 45 minutes. To fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool takes about 4 days. That is 2.5 million litres of water. The capacity of the A380 is about 8% of the volume. 8% of 96 hours is 7.6 hours. That's a lot longer than 45 minutes. So maybe the filling equipment is much faster for a plane. Let's take a look. This is filling a swimming pool. And this is filling an aircraft. To fill the tanks of an A380 in 45 minutes, you would have to have a pump and a hose that could pump 7,189 litres of fuel per minute. Let's look at something that pumps at about half that speed. Now the plane, now the fire hose. Don't you think that filling that wing with that sort of pressure would just rip a hole right through the top? It's only made of aluminium. So far, we have no room for all of that fuel, an incredible weight of fuel, and a filling procedure that makes no sense whatsoever. Time to take a look at moving around with large bodies of liquid. The size of a large car's petrol tank is about 70 litres. Don't you sometimes wish that your petrol tank was bigger so you wouldn't have to fill up so often? There are reasons why this is so. Number one, the weight would drastically reduce the performance of the car. And number two, the amount of fuel sloshing about in the tank would seriously interfere with the road holding whilst going around corners. This doesn't seem to be the case with aircraft using vast quantities of fuel. Let's take a look at what large bodies of liquid does to road holding. Not a pretty sight. Now let's look at a couple of landings of aircraft and try to imagine hundreds of tons of fuel sloshing about in the wings. I think you might be getting the gist of what I'm trying to say. It is ridiculous to think that these aircraft take off, fly, bank, maneuver, and land with large amounts of liquid moving in all directions. The next video clip is from the US Air Force, showing the filling and strapping down of the large bladder tanks used for in-flight refueling of their aircraft. Bear in mind that these 3 tanks are only 9,000 US gallons. This is just under 10% of the fuel needed to fill the A380. Look at the lengths these guys go to and the amount of straps needed to stop this lot sloshing around. Also, this 9,000 gallons takes up a good portion of the aircraft's cargo bay. Where on earth would you fit 10 times this amount on an A380? Is it making sense to you yet? Let's move on to the workings of a modern fan turbine jet engine. Rather than explaining this myself, I will let this short video do the work for me. Observe that at the end they actually say that the secondary flow, which is only compressed air, is the major contributor to the engine's thrust.
Hear that, boys?
What is it?
Just another narrow-body aircraft.
Hey, my atoms are shaking. Strange. It sounds far, but I bet my last proton, that beast is much closer than you think. Hold on, people. It's a LEAP-powered aircraft. A leap to the unknown.
What on earth is a leap?
Something you sure haven't seen before. Everybody get ready. We're going in.
someone please tell me what just happened?
Sure. The engine makes a plane move forward. Thrust is produced by air being pulled in by the fan blades. Then this air is ejected at greater speed through the exhaust, creating the required pushing force. This is a principle of Newton's law. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So how is this possible?
Gentle souls, come with me to the bypass.
Extreme sport freaks, with me, we'll hit the compressors, combustor, and turbines.
The LEAP is a high bypass ratio engine, which means that a large amount of air bypasses the core of the engine to be ejected directly into the exhaust stream. The fan acts like a propeller. Its curved rotating blades accelerate the airflow into the engine. Lighter composite materials provide better efficiency and resistance.
Here come the compressors. Get ready. Things are going to heat up. Feel that? It's the low pressure compressor squeezing us. Now, the high pressure compressors. You're going to feel the difference.
Ultra-efficient compressors deliver optimum air pressure and temperature conditions for combustion.
It's rising up now. Let's get toasted. Gentlemen, meet your kerosene counterparts. These guys are going to light up your day.
Already? We usually mingle inside.
Not anymore.
I thought there'd be more of you.
Normally, yes, but in this engine, fewer of us are needed.
This little kerosene particle is right. The LEAP engine burns less fuel than former engines. In addition, the fuel nozzles mix fuel and air before they enter the combustor, creating a homogeneous mixture that minimizes the peak temperature during combustion. This technology significantly reduces emissions.
Okay, let's go.
The combustion chamber. This is the heart of the engine, where energy is created through combustion of fuel and compressed air.
Are you ready? Here comes the final blast.
What a boost! Where are we now?
Turbines. Let's transfer our energy to them. This is the last extreme stage before we join the soft team. Enjoy.
Advanced material and aerodynamics make the turbines much more efficient and durable. The pressure and speed of the hot gases provide the force needed to turn the turbines and its shaft, which in turn drives the compressor and fan.
Come on, guys, don't hang around. We alone are responsible for 90% of the thrust from this baby. Here come those adrenaline junkies. So, how was it?
Fast, hot, and fantastic.
What a trip!
Are you kidding me? It was us in the primary flow that did most of the job.
Not exactly, kid. It's teamwork. We definitely need each other. We provided the energy to drive the engine, and they provided most of the thrust to make the aircraft move forward.
Hey, boss. Sounds like we're in luck today.
You said it. It's game on again, boys. Let's go.
Now let's watch how compressed air ejected at force into ordinary air reacts. This is an experiment that anyone can do at home. You compress air inside a plastic bottle, pop open the top, and see the result: water vapor. This is what is happening when the jet engines are in cruise mode. They are running purely on compressed air, and the contrails are water vapor being ejected out from the engines. While small amounts of fuel are needed to get the jet engine up to speed, when in cruise mode, the engines use very little to no fuel whatsoever. We are being charged huge amounts for fuel that doesn't exist. It's not needed to fly these amazing machines. All that's needed is the most abundant thing that we've been given: air. I will end this video here with a clip of the A380 at an air show doing a slow pass. It looks as though it is levitating at one point, but that is the subject of the next video, which involves our little friends, the bumblebees.
Very, very slow speed. It's an awesome sight. I don't like the word awesome, but it's true in this case. Look at that. It is almost unbelievable. This, of course, is using the flight safety drive-by-wire program for the Airbus. Airbus things have installed.
There used to be airships, so many airships, not just blimps and stuff like that. And people that wanted to exploit the oil and gas industry and the friggin' electrical grid and stuff like that, these pricks are all friends and family that go to the same schmuck friggin' Bohemian Grove weird fucking orgy shit and also go and to other places and have these meetings and conventions and committees and panels and stuff like that. And you hear them talk, and it's terrifying. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They really don't. And they really think that they have, like they do have, most people do, but again, there's still like a small percentage of the population, like myself, that are calling this stuff out. And 2024 is the year that these liars and manipulators and scumbags and thieves, they got too greedy. Carbon tax and all this other stuff that's being increased, and like increasing electricity, all like you got too greedy. Okay, and not doing a good enough job, not even remotely. Okay, and when the people you're hiring, you got too greedy. So now we're calling this shit out, and more people in Canada, they're gonna know about this, because guess what? I've shared this many times before, but I'm gonna reiterate: petroleum is not a fossil fuel. Because even the whole theory of evolution, the Big Bang, friggin' spinning wet rock through friggin' space, going at 1,000,000 friggin' miles per hour, that's fake news too. All right, and NASA is the main, not supplier, but consumer of helium and stuff like that. And you got to wonder why about that too, and why we're spending billions of friggin' dollars a year on companies that are giving us shitty CGI and a lot of like weird ass, like incomprehensible theories, not grounded in truth. And people are still like, anyway, sorry.
What's the origin of it? See,
Actually, wait.
When they first found petroleum, yeah, is it a mineral? Is it a mineral like any other mineral? Is that how it? Is that how it? What would you say? How did it? What's the origin of it? You see, when they first found petroleum, because they were beginning to make motors and needed on axles of wheels and railroad trains and all that sort of thing. And remember, trains started in the beginning of the 19th century. Then oil went from just a lubricant to a fuel, and it made it valuable. And Rockefeller happened to be the smartest man in the business at the time, but he made most of his money, or much of it, off the transport of petroleum as well as selling it. But
okay, I'm not liking the sound on that, so I just found the original again, and so I'm going to share that on YouTube and see. It's from the auto something or other. The auto shop, and the guy that's talking is Fletcher Prouty. So the auto channel, sorry, and it's something that I really like. This was posted 5 years ago, so it's been a few years that I've been sharing this. So look at this. Check out this guy.
You mentioned in one of your last talks that petroleum wasn't what we thought it was, that it wasn't a fossil fuel, that it didn't come from fossil animal.
Yeah.
Is it just a mineral? Is it a mineral like any other mineral? Is that how it?
Sorry.
Is that how it? What would you say? How did it? What's the origin of?
You see, when they first found petroleum, because they were beginning to make motors and needed on axles of wheels on railroad trains and all that sort of thing. And remember, trains started in the beginning of the 19th century. Then oil went from just a lubricant to a fuel, and it made it valuable. And Rockefeller happened to be the smartest man in the business at the time, but he made most of his money, or much of it, off the transport of the petroleum as well as selling it. But one thing they realized was, because oil is putting a price on oil is like putting a price on a pail of water. You know, there's no initial cost. It's in the ground, and in those days they were, some of it almost what you'd call surface mining the oil. They didn't go down deep. So in order to get the price up, they hit on the idea that they would have to make it appear to be scarce. That after we take the next few barrels out, we're probably going to have to close as well. You know, that kind of thing. Well, a very fortuitous event. In 1892, there was a convention in Geneva of scientists to determine what organic substances are. Well, the definition of organic is a substance with hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon. And so it's usually a living substance, a tree. You analyze a dead
tree.
tree, hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen,
That's very correct.
and grass and so on, living things, animals. We are hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon. So at this Geneva Convention, Rockefeller took advantage of sending some scientists over who said oil, petroleum, is hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon. Therefore, it must be derived from the spoiling, the rotting of formerly living matter. And playing the game properly, when this scientific convention was over, they defined oil as the residue from formerly living matter. Well, that makes it a fossil fuel. I don't know why they decided to use the word fossil, but it says formerly living matter, it's fossil. Well, of course, today, and another thing we should know is that there has never been a fossil, a real fossil found below 16,000 feet. And you can't argue at 16,000 is a level line because someplace the ground sinks and so on. But 16 is what the scientists say, 16,000. We mine oil, or we drill for oil at 30,000, 33,000, 28,000 every day of the week. So right there, we rule it out that it isn't fossil fuel. It's called fossil fuel for the minds of the public to feel that it is an asset that is running out, being depleted. We talk about depletion allowance, which is a lot of, and actually, if you know the world's oil supply, you know that it is not going to run out for an awfully long time. It is the second most prevalent liquid on Earth. And we haven't begun to dig. Well, with all that background, you see, the people in charge of the petroleum business, for perfectly reasonable business things, like any other man in the business, wants to keep his price as high as he can get away with. And the way to do is just say, well, there's no more. We the last barrel is going to cost $1,000, and then it's all done. And they preach that stuff. What bothers me is that in geology books, it's in there. The geologists say it's a fossil fuel. They've been bought. I mean, I went to a 4-year federal staff energy seminar run by the government of the United States during the so-called energy crisis. I was the participant that represented the railroad industry. The airline industry was there. Every AA administrative assistant of senators and congressmen was there. The CIA was there. The Defense Department was there. The State Department was there. Sometimes sitting right in front of me in the row would be Henry Kissinger with his friend, the head of the Department of Defense.
On the Epstein list. That's confirmed. That's a fact. That's also someone that's been known for years to be on that friggin' list.
So that's too bad. I can't put the names.
Those fucking commie lovers. Yeah, there's your leaders are like throughout history. By the way, the most crimes against humanity have committed against atheist commies. Okay, you think in Europe that like the Nazis? You think the Nazis were right-wing extremists? You'd be wrong, because the most crimes against humanity and the most death happened in Poland, in Austria, in European countries that were socialist, communist during those times. And so people really need to learn their history. And Adolf Hitler actually in the late 1930s, he became the minority party leader and leader under a socialist communist party, and then he aligned with the with what you consider the conservative party of the time to gain a majority. And so these countries that are blaming Germany, their people, their government, and their truck drivers, and their nurses, and their doctors, and their scientists, and their cops, and their fucking militaries, completely different ass country, they're the ones that committed those acts. They're the ones that drove those people to those freaking concentration camps and turned on those fucking gas chambers and stuff like that, and shot people and raped and pillaged and fucking burned and destroyed crops and stuff. Like, these were all commies, right? So these crazy friggin' woke people that we're seeing all over the place in Canada and the US, okay? This is why people that are more conservative in values and behaviors and stuff like that, we're the ones that are trying to call this stuff out, okay? While people within our own fucking cabinet are like the main supporters and enablers of this. And Wayne Eyre also, he's the chief of defense staff in Canada, needs to be fired, needs to be on a fucking court, needs to be in jail. and he's a commie, an atheist.
With them. But anyway, people like that, top men in the government, sitting there listening to the Federal Staff Energy Seminar. Well, what this was doing is for 4 years, they were teaching a propaganda line to the leading people in this country, and therefore to the leading people in the world, when you include the Schlesingers, Kissinger and Schlesinger, among others. And the object of it was, as Kissinger used in his own terms when it was time for him to speak, to create a world price for oil. In other words, not 30 cents a gallon here and 90 cents a gallon there, but let's get a world price. That's their goal, and they're trying to do that for wheat and everything else. We don't realize what the controls are, whether it's oil or some of these other things. Almost everything today is being categorized at the highest price they can possibly make it go. And so calling petroleum a fossil fuel is the basis for this system with respect to petroleum. And I don't know if the name Arthur Kantrowitz rings any bell. Arthur Kantrowitz is the head of the Kantrowitz Labs set up by the Avco company near Boston, scientific laboratories, and a great man in the scientific world. And Kantrowitz and I were sitting at a table at this seminar once, and the table happened to be all young college grad, PhD geologists. And so just to get a conversation started, I turned to Kantrowitz and I said, Arthur, what do you think about this foolishness of these speakers talking about fossil fuel? And it was kind of put up. He started laughing. He said, you know, that gets me. He says, I don't have a geology degree. We have 1,000 other degrees. And he said, I don't understand. He said, you'd think that these heads, these other fellows at the table, we did it on purpose, start listening, you know. And he asked, he said, are you gentlemen? He says, you're here at the meeting. Are you gentlemen by any chance geologists? And one fellow, yes, I am. And the other, yeah. He said, well, why don't you tell me? He said, why is oil? You know, he went on like that. We brought the house down because nobody could argue with Kantrowitz. He like Einstein. People aren't going to. And he told them right there. He said, just drop it. But it's in all the books and in all the papers. But it started from that strange meeting in 1892, a scientific convention. I have a big, thick scientific encyclopedia put out by the Divan Ostrin Company that's about 15 years old now, but it has the whole story of the conference. It doesn't have the Rockefeller part, but it has the whole story of how they straightened out organic chemicals and how it was all figured, and they've got petroleum right in there.
Amazing. Amazing. So
these aren't accidental things, you see. There's a dollar sign behind almost everything.
Yep. There's a dollar sign behind almost everything. There's a dollar sign behind a lot of things. And I have given up multi-million-dollar contracts in the last few years because of not wanting to exploit people. And then also, like, again, deciding to speak out publicly at expense to myself in so many different ways about the reality of the world, because they're like these politicians and stuff like that. They're not, like, no offense, like, they're not reading books. They're not out, like, they're not exploring. They're not doing anything that's going to help them within their jobs, clearly, because, like, there's been people that have been in cabinet just cycling around their friggin' departments, like, pretending that I'm an expert in education. Now I'm heritage minister. Now I'm finance. Now I'm transport. And they're shitty at all of the friggin' jobs. And they're just there as, like, mouthpieces that vote, like, on behalf of lobbyists and corporations they're working with, and not Canadians at all, right? And so people like me, like, who has tried to be on the political spectrum and or work with like in politics, as an analyst, as an international security analyst. So I would take Bill Blair's job, for example, or I would take Wayne Ayer's job too, like, or something along those lines, because I do believe that someone with my experience should be, like, assisting with the decision making going on, right? Because if you talk to oil companies, for example, and you don't know the reality of what's going on, then, and they do, by the way. So, like, the people at the top of the oil companies, they know the reality of the world. They know the reality of fucking oil, like the heads of like the commercial airlines, like Air Canada and WestJet and stuff like that. They know, like, what the fuel costs are and the quantities and how it's drilled, and they know the friggin' reality of the world, that it's not a friggin' wet spinning ball going through friggin' outer space. Like, they know this. And they're banking on us not knowing that, right? So if you have someone like me, okay, and not a friggin' part-time drama teacher who may or may not know all of this stuff, you know, even though his family has like generational wealth and they've kept it in the family for again, many, many years. Well, does he know this stuff to this degree? Does Pierre Poilievre? It doesn't sound like it. And that's why I'm trying to get this out, because it's fucking necessary at this point, ladies and gentlemen. The more we're shredding trees, millions of trees just in the last couple of years in Ontario alone. And like you get like so many different precious metals and oils and gas and supplies, like from fucking just keeping the goddamn trees. And also with carbon in the environment, we have thrived as a civilization in previous eras when we've had larger quantities of carbon in the friggin' air. And it's a scam with the carbon tax too. I could go on about carbon tax, but I'm already over an hour in again. And so I'll leave it at that. And I hope this message gets out there. And yeah, and I'm available to be on friggin' panels, committees, like meetings, interviews, you name it, to get this information out there. So fucking call me, especially if you're in government. And I do courses, like I've said this a million times, but I was the one that was teaching the standing rapid deployment team courses for the highest levels of government to respond to natural and man-made events internationally. And so like not to toot my own horn, but I was the best at the job. And there are people that are teaching these courses now that have replaced me, that have taken my course material, and even like some of the people that I employed and the facilities that I was using, and they're not doing a good enough job because they're not teaching the same shit that I am, right? They still think that, you know, there was a pandemic that wasn't staged and planned and lied about. They still, you know, like they might be on booster number 5, right? So like there's a lot of people that are just not willing to cooperate with someone like me because they think that I am a pseudoscientist, despite the irony in that. Despite the irony in that. And people that don't even have a university degree, not even one. And again, like even with schooling, like with the academic institutions, they're lying to you. So like these big degrees that people have, like a lot of the information you have, you're lied to about. Like even with evolution, like even embryos like that are fake dog embryos and other embryos of other animals that we're claiming are human species, and we're still faking transitional skeletons, even though that has been repeatedly debunked, like this Lucy, whatever you want to call it, skeleton. Like this was fake. This was like people altered and put animal bones like in place of human bones, like in half ape skull, half human skull, with the mandible and the cranial area like being from a different species, and saying like this is Neanderthals, like these are the transitional species. What are you talking about? And no one is following up on this stuff. Like I'm looking at literal science books. How fucked up is this? Okay, because since I was a little girl, my brother, like he corrected an advanced calculus or whatever it was, freaking math book when he was in high school, and he was 7 years older than me, so or six years older than me anyway. And I was like, oh my God, like so even math can be incorrect, like what am I? Or math books can be incorrect. And so I started questioning a lot of things, and so there's a lot of things that like I went and did my own research or my own exploration, or I thought I was doing like even reading the friggin' Discovery books and like the Blue Planet books and the Green, like all those friggin' books, thinking that this was actual fucking reality. Well, a lot of it was, you know, when you're talking about animals and the ocean and stuff like that, but like all that space stuff was bullshit. The Planet friggin' Spear series bullshit. And evolution, Big Bang bullshit. Stephen Hawkins could possibly be on the list. I've heard him like on that list for a couple of years as well. I don't even care. I mean, I do care about that stuff. Like he should be in jail, right? If that's the case. But also he's a pseudoscientist, and I've been calling him out for years on the record on social media, saying that he's a pseudoscientist and lying to us and getting paid to do it. And just because he looks like he has a handicap or does have a handicap doesn't mean that you shouldn't be calling out a liar. Okay, that's exploiting us, that's deceiving us, that's stealing from us and our children and our children's children, and destroying the world in the process, right? Because like the further we are removed from the reality of the world, like the worse stuff we're doing to it. Okay, we got to realize, right, that you have to make this relationship work. Okay, because there's no breaking up with Earth, right? Like there's no leaving Earth to go to other fucking planets. It's not a reality. So we have to get on board with unfucking what these Tedros morons and other people that have no idea what they're talking about. Most of them are sexual perverts in their own lives, and it is what it is. But just leave us alone and let us get on with life. I'm rambling. So I hope you have a good Friday. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. And I hope you like, share, and subscribe, and get this video out there so it gets viral. And peace. No, I should do it this way, the real way.